Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. I hope you enjoy. Story number 1. They're contaminated. Written by the third one. All right, gather round, everyone. Time to begin the briefing, Boss Wag said as he sat down in the simulated meeting room, looking at the circle of holograms in front of him at the long, oval-shaped table. His name wasn't really Wag, but everyone called him that on account of his large, constantly wagging tail, which could impressively still be seen even while he was seated. That, and the fact that his actual name was basically unpronounceable to almost every species that didn't have 2 tongues. So what does the forward research team have for us today? What was so urgent that you called this meeting ahead of time? He questioned, looking at the first hologram on his left. Well, the hologram of the research team representative hesitantly began. Unfortunately, we really only have bad news. The subjects were, contaminated. All of them. The figure said, looking down in dismay. What? Boss Wag exclaimed, while the other holograms began whispering to each other in alarm. Wait, hold up, people. Let's start from where we last left off. Last meeting, you said that you had surreptitiously obtained some humans from all over Earth, making sure to take 3 generations of the same families. Your task was to learn about human anatomy, with a focus on hereditary trends, as these were determined to be the first hurdle that we should face in our overarching goal of infiltrating human society by imitating and replacing select humans. Then, when the time was right, these sleeper agents would sow chaos from the inside while invading from the outside, ensuring our complete and total victory over the humans of planet Earth. Your team was to be beginning dissections of humans, yes? So, what do you mean they were contaminated? Did you pick bad ones to abduct? This should have been as simple, Boss Wag said, with the beginnings of a hard edge in his voice, thinking his subordinates might be inept, and his mission in jeopardy. No, the hologram of the researcher urged him, with 2 of his tentacles raised in front of him in an attempt to reassure and calm Boss Wag down. We made sure to get good samples from all over the place. The sample size was purposely selected to ensure that we got a diverse look at humanity. No, the problem seems to be present in all of the people we dissected, the researcher continued, seeing Boss Wag relax a bit. Furthermore, we actually detected a different contaminant in each generation of humans. Here, look at this family for as an example, the hologram said, while swiping a tentacle up to bring a screen in front of everyone. Boss Wag hummed. Looks like a son, his father, and his grandfather. So what contaminants did they have? The son had relatively large concentrations of what the humans called microplastics in his bloodstream, minuscule pieces of solid created from processed remains of ancient plant and animal life that had been naturally compressed and heated over time to create a substance they call oil. The researcher summarized, highlighting the figure of the young man on the display. The father on the other tentacle had a disturbing amount of crystallized fibers in his lungs from a material the humans have named asbestos. They built all kinds of structures with this before they realized how incredibly detrimental it was to breathe in, the researcher said, as he shook his head. And finally, the grandfather had clear indications of long-term acute lead poisoning, which apparently used to be an additive in a colorful layer the humans would cover their homes and other things with, and also was a part of their fuel that was burned to power their vehicles. It was obviously exposed to lead for years while growing up, the researcher concluded. Incredible, Boss Wag said, clearly shocked by what he was hearing. So what are they called? Hospitals. Which hospitals did you pick these up from? He asked while leaning forward in his seat. None, boss. We didn't get any subjects from any hospitals. These people are considered within bounds of normal health. They're living normal lives. There was a pregnant silence hovering over the room. No one dared to speak, so shocked were they. Boss Wag's tail had actually stopped wagging, which no one present had ever seen before. But look at the concentrations of these contaminants, Boss Wag said, after rubbing his one giant eye and looking again at the display, just to be sure of what he read. They're huge. Their amounts of horrible pollutants in such vital places in the body would kill any one of us. How can the human body handle the varied types of foreign material? Boss Wag was clearly distressed by now as they hurriedly scrolled past the subject on display, his voice raising in intensity and volume. These humans are terrifyingly resilient. They don't even care that they poison themselves, since their bodies just keep working. I have to warn the higher-ups about this immediately. Warring against these kinds of clearly physically superior life forms, who also seem to be absolutely crazy, should be avoided at all costs. Everyone out! Bosswag shouted, as one hologram around the table after another winked out. Oh, who the hell picked me to conquer this crazy planet anyway? That bastard must have a huge grudge against me, hoping to get rid of me. Well, lucky I'm so thorough, Bosswag muttered to himself, as he went about scheduling another meeting right away, with all the top brass. This is gonna suck. End of story. Story number 2. The Volunteers, written by Teller of Tall Tales. The explosion lifted me up from the ground. I felt hot needles of shrapnel pierce my skin before I landed in a crumpled heap. I lay there, staring off into the night sky as dirt rained down around me. If they'd breached the courtyard, this rebellion was over before it truly started. I remember when the Ghanaian government wasn't a dictatorship, when one could freely walk down the street with no mandatory curfews, no secret police looking for dissent, when my mother and father were still alive. As I gazed to the sky in remembrance of better times, a shooting star passed through the atmosphere. I swallowed a mouthful of blood and dirt. I wish someone would help us. The shooting star streaked across the sky, but it didn't disappear. Instead, it simply dropped its re-entry shield, revealing a dark shape that careened through the sky, getting bigger and bigger until it flew right over the compound. The sound of massive cannons firing could be heard from the government's side, but I was too focused on the winged being slowly gliding down from the sky towards the courtyard. Beetle black burnished armor covered them from head to toe, their helmets lacking any kind of visible visor, just solid black orbs. A pair of wings with small kinetic boosters at the tips were strapped to their backs. One landed right next to me, dropping a large black bag and scanning my injured, crumpled form. I heard no words from the being of that solid black helmet, but the figure immediately went to work, carefully tourniqueting my shredded leg before applying a strange gel that hardened immediately upon contact with my bloodied, torn flesh. I noticed a symbol emblazoned across the chest of armor, a simple embossed V. More of the dark armored soldiers bowed into the ground as the courtyard's great wooden gates were blown inward. There was a tense moment of silence. Then the dark armored soldiers raised massive kinetic firearms with belts of ammunition that were as thick as my largest finger and opened fire in a staggered line. The military, pouring through the gate, mowed down the moment they crossed the threshold. Even then, more of the dark armored soldiers fell from the sky, holding massive metal armor plates taller than they were, with large circular inertial dampeners. I watched in awe as they moved shields made from battleship armor as though they weighed nothing. Just as the dark armored soldiers formed a phalanx, a tank thundered through the gates and belched around at the line. The massive HE shell seemed to stop centimeters away from one of the armored shields, turning around slowly to facing the opposite direction. A deadly hum filled the air, until, with a sound like two hammers colliding with full force, the shell was repelled back to the tank so fast it glowed like a tracer before impacting the tank and blowing the turret off. The soldier holding the shield stumbled back slightly, but remained standing as the shell hurled back. To my infinite surprise, I heard the military begin a hasty retreat as the dark soldiers pushed forward. Then, with a push of a button, their shield shuddered perfectly upright and deep into the stony ground to barricade the burst-open gate. As the din of battle faded, so did my consciousness.
Think he'll make it? Of course he will. You know I'm a competent field medic.
Yeah, says the one that threatened to sew my foreskin shut if I cheated on her.
That wasn't a threat. It was a promise.
And my eyes shot open, and the two beings in front of me quieted down. I had stopped myself from gasping. Their fur covered only the tops of their heads, and from one of them part of their face. Everything else was pale skin with the red-tinged lips, cheeks, and terrifyingly colorful eyes. "Who are you people?" I blurted out. The ones without fur on their face bared their teeth and lifted the corners of their lips before snapping a salute.
"We're volunteers of humanity, and we're here to help out in any way we can."
I shook my head confused. I already had more questions than I started with. The one with the fur on their face clarified. We're a non-profit organization that helps everyone and anyone we possibly can, from battlefields like this to dying planets. We do it all.
I was shocked. You must be paid exceptionally well for this, then.
They shared a loft, not a goddamn dime. The work itself is payment enough.
End of story. I would quickly like to thank the T5 channel members and Patreons. Caspar Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, Lord Azrakal, It's Difficult to Pronounce, Dragzoon WRE, Holly's Sister, Arcadian. Thank you very much.